Good evening. Welcome to the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education regular public meeting. Today is January 20th, 2022. Mr. Jones, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bauer?
Here.
Mrs. Boroff?
Here.
Ms. Brody?
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Here.
Ms. Siriani?
Here.
Ms. Williams? Ms. Winkler?
Here.
Mr. Murray?
Here.
Dr. Kolakowski?
Here. Quorum is present. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Please join me in the salute to the flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Prior to us assembling here, we just had our executive session meeting. At that meeting, we discussed the personnel agenda. We had a HIB review. We discussed the suspension and detention report and the legal status report. Tonight, we have some additions to the agenda. We have a total of 14 emails and letters. We have 3C, Memorandum of Agreement with Law Enforcement Officials, and 14 BUS, the theater vendor. At this time, Dr. Mass, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Kolakowski. So tonight in my report, I have a number of positive news pieces, and I'm going to just start by inviting Super Jocelyn up to the podium, please.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne Appizato Bjorklund, and I am the president of the Scotch Plains Fanwood PTA Council. The council is made up of representatives from each of our 8 school PTAs, whom are volunteers, as well as members from community-based organizations that serve the needs of our children. As a council, we serve as leaders for our robust PTA chapters and collaborate with one another to provide the best tools for parents to help their children be successful students. For those who might not know, January is New Jersey's School Board Appreciation Month. This is a time to raise public awareness of the roles and responsibilities of local boards of education and to thank them for their volunteer efforts. In total, New Jersey school boards oversee 580 school districts, which in turn operate 2,500 public schools and provide educational services to nearly 1.4 million children. School boards set the policies for our schools and make important decisions affecting curriculum, financing, and staffing. Back in 2010, the Scotch Plains Fanwood PTA Council created the tradition of honoring the Board of Education for their dedication in serving our Scotch Plains Fanwood community and the vital contributions they provide in the education of our children. Their efforts help to make a difference for our students. This evening has since become a tradition we all look forward to. We would like to present each member with a small token of our appreciation. Robin is handing them out to you all. We have decided to start another tradition, and like last year, we are presenting you with gifts that were purchased from our local merchants here in Scotch Plains and Fanwood, as we feel strongly about supporting our community. On behalf of the PTA Council, thank you.
Thank you, Sue. We appreciate your acknowledgement, but of course it is not needed. We reciprocate, and we certainly admire the members of the PTA Council and all PTAs within Scotch Plains Fanwood. But thank you for being here tonight and honoring us with your presence and your kind words.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the second piece of news that I'd like to share tonight is just the trend of positive cases is moving in the right direction. So for example, when we started the week of January 3rd, there were 213 positive cases. The second week that we were back, there were 139 cases, and from January 17th to the 20th, there are now 67 cases. Also, a very important metric is the transmission rate, which has dropped below 1. So we find great optimism in those numbers. Tonight, we are, tonight during the instructional update, we are honoring a very deserving group of educators who positively impact the lives of our students every day. This group of educators, along with our aides, administrators, all of our colleagues, the entire SPF staff, helped to navigate through the highest wave of COVID. It required all hands on deck to get us through. It wasn't easy, but we did it as a team for our students. So for the teachers and educators who are being recognized tonight, thank you, and for the entire SPF staff, thank you very much for helping us get through what was not an easy time. So soon, we will be delighted to have our Governor Educator of the Year recognition in person. Last year, we celebrated on a Zoom. This is much better.
Thank you, Dr. Mast. Business Administrators Report, Mr. Jones.
No major updates this month, but for next month, we will have our auditor will come in and present the audit findings. And also, next week, we should have some updated data in terms of our demographers report and our capacity report that will kick off the referendum process.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of this act, the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Board of Education offices located at 512 Cedar Street, Scotch Plains, New Jersey. Such notice was also provided in written notice and forwarded to the Times, now known as the Union County Hawk, the Star Ledger, the Township Clerk of Scotch Plains, and the Borough Clerk of Fanwood. It was in the revised annual notice of regularly scheduled meetings as adopted September 1st, 2021. So now for the instructional update. We'll start with the recognition of the 2021-2022 Governor Educator of the Year Awards, and then move on to the New Jersey Start Strong Testing Report by Dr. Robert McGarry. Dr. Mayor?
So to launch our recognition of our Governor Educator of the Year Awards, I'd like to invite Mr. Scott Bortnick from Brunner Elementary School to the podium.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to start by saying thank you to the Board of Ed for having this event for us for this evening, and congratulations to all the award recipients, and a special thank you to the award recipients' families. The Board of Ed in Scotch Plains and Fanwood always says beautiful things about the people that work here, and thank you for that. And one of the things that always stands out for me is when they thank the families of the educators for allowing your family member to be such a huge part of our family and the lives of the children in this district. So thank you so much for allowing your husbands and wives and significant others to be here and do all the work that they do. The last 2 years has really shown for all of us how much educators do, not just in school, but outside of school. I'm honored to ask Karen Lee and Melissa Payne to come join me from Brunner School as our award recipients. Thank you also to the Brunner Peanut Gallery. It gives me great pleasure to talk about these two wonderful educators. Mrs. Lee is a caring, kind, and conscientious teacher who goes above and beyond for her students and families. Mrs. Lee is an innovative teacher who differentiates her instruction for each individual in her room. Mrs. Lee's experience as a Spanish teacher, as well as a second and fourth grade teacher at Brunner, provides her with a wonderfully deep teacher's toolbox for supporting students in a truly diverse classroom. Mrs. Lee's calm demeanor helps students feel comfortable in the classroom and with each other. The comfort that she provides comes from a variety of sources, including her focus on making sure each and every student sees themselves in the curriculum and has a space for their voices to be heard in the classroom. Mrs. Lee is a trusted resource for her parents of her students as well, and she regularly communicates with parents and does so to ensure their comfort and understanding of what's best for their children. Mrs. Lee is also a trusted colleague whose recognition of the value of professional collaboration and in leadership roles with her colleagues is regularly on display. It's for this reason and a million more that Karen Lee is truly deserving of recognition as Educator of the Year. Congratulations. I jokingly said to Melissa's husband when he came in that their daughters probably know me as the guy that's always on the phone with their mom. Because Melissa and I have spent probably more time on the phone together, especially on the weekends and on Sundays for some reason. Like everybody gets COVID on Sundays, which is really tough during football season. So we do spend a lot of time together, and Melissa is really a gift, and I couldn't have gotten through the last few years without her, certainly. I'm very, very thankful for her friendship and for our work together. Mrs. Payne is a wonderful example of the care, dedication, and astute knowledge of the medical field that are essential components of being a school nurse. Whether it's a Band-Aid for an excruciatingly painful paper cut, some of which cannot actually be seen by the human eye, an ice pack for a wounded knee from recess, or completing hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of contact tracing. During the pandemic, Mrs. Payne, is the consummate professional. Some of her best work happens when situations are most challenging. During emergencies, Mrs. Payne's years of experience working in hospitals is instantly on display as she makes quick and accurate decisions about the health and safety of staff and her children. Mrs. Payne's best work is also on display as she patiently and with great empathy talks to families about challenging situations at home or in school. The care that Mrs. Payne shows the families is heartwarming. And so too was an amazing drive that she just completed where we collected pajamas and children's books for families in need in Union County. How many pairs of pajamas did we wind up with?
210.
200 and something pairs of pajamas.
220 books.
And 220 or so books. And that's after doing 8,000 hours of contact tracing. So thank you very much. Another fine example of a very, very deserving Educator of the Year. Congratulations. Unlike the tenure recognition in the fall, where I forgot to introduce my next colleague, I'm very happy to introduce Mr. Justin Fiore. Unfortunately, Dr. Karen Weatherall is not well. She wasn't able to join us tonight, and Justin's here to recognize the wonderful educators at Coles. Mr. Fiore.
I would like to welcome Michelle Kovac and Danielle Hoey up to the stage, please. Michelle Kovac is a second grade teacher at Coles School. Having taught several grades, Mrs. Kovac knows the ins and outs of Coles and has connections with all staff members. The second grade team has had a lot of transitions over the last few years, and Mrs. Kovac has always remained steady and reliable through the transitions. She has served as a mentor to several teachers and has been the go-to person on the grade level. She has provided support with instruction as well as the day-to-day operations of the school. She is always willing to share her extensive knowledge of teaching strategies and pedagogy. Mrs. Kovac never loses her composure. She remains calm regardless of the challenges at hand. She faces each day with a smile and a level-headed attitude. She never shows she is rattled or overwhelmed. Her calm, matter-of-fact approach to every situation always leads to success. Mrs. Kobeck has always been willing to develop her skills as a teacher. She piloted the reading program and opened her classroom for lesson studies and teacher training. She created a parent presentation, sharing the components of the new program and modeling a mini lesson. Her dedication and commitment to implementing the new program led to its success. Mrs. Kobeck embraces any opportunity for professional development, which makes her an ideal leader. Her classroom is a mini family within the school. She welcomes all students and assures each has a voice. Students thrive in her classroom and feel a part of the family as she weaves their interests into lessons. To be a student in Mrs. Kobeck's classroom is to feel a connection with the teacher and always knowing she will do whatever it takes to make every lesson meaningful. Mrs. Kobeck is an asset to Coles School. Coles is proud to have her represent us as our Governor Educator of the Year. Congratulations. Danielle Hoey is an instructional aide at Coles School. She is dedicated to her students. She is kind and caring and has endless patience. Mrs. Hoey creates a welcoming environment for all the students she works with, and her nurturing demeanor helps her develop a positive rapport with the students. She excels in each environment she works in, providing the needed support for all students. Mrs. Hoey is a true asset to Coles and goes out of her way to assist teachers, staff, and students. During virtual learning and hybrid instruction, Mrs. Hoey worked in the self-contained classroom. She trained other staff members on how to run a Google Meet, use breakout rooms, and keep students engaged while virtual. Her patience, understanding, and sense of humor made virtual learning possible. Mrs. Hoey is always reaching out to see what needs to be done, whether it's providing assistance at arrival, offering to help with door duty every day, or making sure younger students get to their destination in the morning or at dismissal. She greets everyone with a smile and always has a funny story to share. She is relatively new to Coles School, but has quickly become an integral part of our staff. Having her at Coles makes each day run a little smoother, as she has the innate ability to figure out where she is needed the most. Coles is proud to have Danielle Hoey as our Educator Service Professional of the Year. Congratulations. I'd like to welcome Colleen Halbert, Principal of Evergreen School, forward.
Good evening and congratulations to all of our honorees. I'd like to invite Connie Roth and Jessica Pressman up here. So it's my privilege to offer a few words about Evergreen School's honorees, Jessica Pressman and Connie Roth. There's a wonderful symmetry to our awards this year, as both Jessica and Connie are valued members of our special education department. Jessica is our Educator of the Year. She's been described as a dedicated, reflective, kind and caring, and highly organized professional. I have certainly witnessed these characteristics on a daily basis. Jessica has been a leader for our special education department and a highly regarded resource for our teachers who value her experience, knowledge, and expertise. She never stops learning or seeking new strategies to help her students move forward. A perfect example of her conscientiousness came on the day I announced her award in morning announcements. When I went to her classroom to congratulate her in person, she didn't know what I was talking about because while I was live streaming the announcements, she was finishing up an online professional development module. So she was a bit chagrined, but I was happy to have a great anecdote that demonstrated her dedication. So thank you, Jessica, for all you do and will continue to do on behalf of our students. And Connie Roth is our Educational Services Professional of the Year. She is an instructional aide in our special education department and has earned the reputation of the student whisperer because of her great success with the students in her care. In the nominations submitted for Connie, a quote was shared about how to view a child with disabilities that encompasses Connie's greatest strength. I changed the quote a bit to reflect her work in our school, and it goes like this. Don't think that there's a different, better student hiding behind the challenges. This is your student. Love the student in front of you. Encourage his strengths, celebrate her quirks, and improve their weaknesses the way you would with any other student. This is what Connie does. She completely accepts her students as they are and develops an amazing rapport with them that helps them to have agency in their own growth. Her students come to trust and know that they have a strong and constant advocate and cheerleader who will never give up. As her nomination stated, those lucky enough to work with her are better because she is part of their educational journey. Connie, you are a true gift to Evergreen School, and on behalf of all of us in Evergreen School, we congratulate both you and Jessica. Well-deserved awards.
That was so nice, thank you.
And now, I almost forgot my job, even though I have it written. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sasha Slocum.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. Thank you to our Board of Education so much for this wonderful night. I'm so glad that we can see everybody in person. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep this short, but boy, our colleagues and families said a lot about our two wonderful winners this year. So I'd like to welcome Mrs. Candace Testa and Mrs. Cheryl Ward up here, please. All right. So Candace, she is an exceptionally talented first grade teacher at McGinn School. She is the dedicated president of the Scotch Plains Fanwood Education Association. She is a supportive colleague, a wife and mother of beautiful children who are here tonight, and a sister who's also here, of two elementary school age boys. She cannot be summarized quickly, but here are some highlights of what colleagues, parents, and kids wrote about her in their nominations. From parents, during the unprecedented and ever-changing 2021 school year, Mrs. Testa succeeded in teaching her students without missing a beat. Not only did she instill a love of reading and writing in her students, she successfully taught each student to be a responsible and independent first grader. When I asked my daughter if she'd like to nominate any teachers for this recognition, she instantly said, Mrs. Testa, she was the best teacher. I am grateful for all Mrs. Testa did for our children. Colleagues also sang her praises in many ways in writing. Mrs. Testa is frequently crouched down next to a student, providing individual attention while simultaneously guiding the class in the activity at hand. Her innate knack to recognize what various students require is a primary reason why she meets the diverse needs of each individual in her classroom. Beyond academics, her warm heart and compassionate nature allow her to communicate with students easily and put them at ease when they are having a rough day. Especially in the days of the pandemic, Mrs. Testa is the perfect combination of teacher, counselor for her students. And when your colleagues know what they're doing and they say these things about you, you know that this is a special person. Mrs. Testa's outstanding classroom structure provides a safe space for her students to be creative and successful. As both a former kindergarten teacher and longtime first grade teacher in School 1 and McGinn, she has shaped the lives of hundreds of young students. She has been a mentor for the SPF Building Teacher Leadership Capacity Grant in collaboration with Kane University and the Plainfield School District, which led her to mentor a student teacher, the first one in the district to go through the NG Ed TPA process. She has always modeled workshop methods and is a key mentor in the delivery of Readers and Writers Workshop. She is very deserving of this honor. Congratulations, Mrs. Testa. Mrs. Ward, wow. I think every single word that Mr. Bortnick said about his relationship with his nurse can be echoed here. I think all of our nurses could be up here tonight and every year at this point. Mrs. Cheryl Ward has been described by her colleagues as the perfect combination of human, angel, and superhero. These sentiments have been echoed by families and students alike. McGinn Educational Services Professional of the Year only scratches the surface of the honors that should be bestowed upon her. She truly considers the total academic, social, and emotional well-being of the community she serves and protects. And these are some comments from her colleagues that they've expressed in numerous ways. Cheryl has met with us, called us, texted us, and checked on us after hours in our times of need. Mrs. Ward has contact traced, tracked students' movements and everyone they have contact with, and informed parents of COVID testing requirements and quarantine while talking them off the ledge and withstanding some abrasive comments. She has made phone calls early in the morning, late in the evening, on weekends, and even during family trips. Thank you so much to her family who's here too. Mrs. Ward has prioritized the safety of McGinn students and staff. Another comment another beautifully written comment from colleagues. Mrs. Ward treats each injury or symptom with discretion, sensitivity, and respect, no matter how minor the injury. She validates each child's feelings and gives them hands-on attention, making her office a safe and comfortable place for students and staffs to visit. Mrs. Ward has never given up. Her answer is always, I can, I will. In our community, Mrs. Ward has sewn masks and created kindness signs with her daughter and family, volunteered with the Union County COVID Vaccination Center at Kean University to get people vaccinated, and accessed her many connections to provide the latest research for our school and district. As our staff explained, it's an honor to call Mrs. Ward our friend and our Educational Services Professional of the Year. Congratulations. And I forgot too, I would like to welcome Dr. Jocelyn Dumaresque to the podium, please. She was just next in line. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, Mr. Justin Fiore.
Thank you. I haven't got quite to the doctor point yet. I'm not seeing that in my future either. I'd like to welcome two amazing educators and wonderful friends of mine, Caitlin Disney and Lori Ladowski. Forward, please. Superhero. I love it. The superhero theme is perfect. It is my pleasure to speak on behalf of not only two amazing educators, but most importantly, two unbelievable people who have been recognized as the Governor Educators of the Year for School One. First, Mrs. Disney is simply a phenomenal teacher. As one of her nomination letters stated, I have never seen a teacher as dedicated to making her class feel like a family, and she helps all of her students feel so connected and engaged each and every day. Parents feel fortunate that their child has Mrs. Disney as a teacher. She has a way of connecting with each of them that makes them all feel special. Along with doing wonderful things in the classroom as a teacher, Mrs. Disney is truly a supportive staff member. Working as a first grade teacher, as well as district technology coach, she is someone that is always there to support others. She puts forth great effort each and every day and is a natural coach. She can always be found assisting someone else, whether it's before or after school or during one of her prep periods. She's a true resource to her colleagues. A few years ago, she continued her education and received her Orton Gillingham certification. This experience has allowed her to adjust her teaching style to incorporate a multi-sensory approach to instruction in her classroom. Students who enter her classroom as a struggling reader leave her room with the confidence that they can accomplish anything. The one aspect of Mrs. Disney that sets her apart from others is simply the person that she is. You won't be able to find someone with a more contagious smile. There is always a feeling that nothing bothers her and she can get through anything. The last 2 years have been beyond challenging for our teachers, and one person who has shown a positive attitude through it all is Caitlin. I thank you for your continued positive energy, and I hope you know that your attitude is what has helped so many of us through these difficult days. I thank you for all that you do, and congratulate you on being recognized as the School One Teacher of the Year. I know you will continue to make a positive impact on the lives of all of your students and colleagues each and every day. If the last 2 years have taught us anything, it has made us aware that there is nothing more important than the connections that are made between people. At School One, there is no one who has forged these relationships and connections more than our student assistant specialist, Mrs. Ladowski. Her presence in our building has made an unbelievable impact on not only our students, but also our staff. She is someone who routinely goes above and beyond what is expected of her to support the social and emotional aspects of our students. She has a significant presence with our students by greeting them on arrival and supporting them as they enter our school. Her caring, loving demeanor has helped students a great deal as they return to in-person instruction this school year. Along with the everyday support that she gives to the students, she is a wonderful support to the parents of our school. As one parent indicated in their nomination letter, Ms. Ledowski makes connections with their parents to help them feel supported and works together with them to also feel that their child matters and their success is a priority. It is clear that Ms. Ledowski exhibits the desire to build partnerships with everyone that she comes in contact with to help her students. One of the greatest connections that Mrs. Ledowski has been able to make that has almost certainly had the greatest impact on our building is the connection she has made with staff members. She's a strong resource for the staff here at School One. The staff have needed great support now that they've returned to in-person instruction after a tumultuous year dealing with COVID. Not only do our staff rely on her professionally, but many staff turn to her personally. She has created a relationship with staff that has instituted a level of confidentiality that many feel they can share with her issues that may be going on with in their personal lives. What certainly should not go unnoticed is the impact that all of this has on our students. The number of times that Ms. Ledowski has been able to assist a staff member to put them into a better place emotionally, to then allow them to return to the classroom is too many to count. This has resulted in teachers being able to overcome emotional obstacles related to the pandemic and life in general and be emotionally present for the students that they serve. She's been a true gift to our students and staff. She's an absolutely wonderful nominee for Educational Service Professional of the Year for School One Elementary, and I couldn't be more happy for her. Congratulations.
Congratulations. So well deserved. I'm proud of both of you.
Now I'd like to welcome Dr. Dumaresque, Principal of Nettingham.
Good evening, everyone, and congratulations to all of our Governor Educator of the Year winners. It is my pleasure to welcome Adrian Stack and Ellen Makeley up. I like that. Let's go. Come on over here. I thought Landon was going to come over with you. Adrian Stack is a fifth grade teacher at Nettingham. She is a 17-year veteran and highly involved in a variety of activities and supports throughout the district. Entering fifth grade at a new school can be incredibly daunting for our students. However, fifth grade also marks a key moment in their academic and socio-emotional development. Mrs. Stack strikes the perfect balance of firm but fair, shepherding students into higher expectations with a wealth of support and feedback. Mrs. Stack keeps her students' families highly involved in their child's educational experiences by sending home detailed weekly updates to help them partner in their child's education. Outside of the classroom, Mrs. Stack is involved with leading professional development in the district and serves as one of our technology coaches. Finally, Mrs. Stack coaches the high school girls varsity volleyball team, in addition to this superhero right here. After winning her 200th game last year, she then, yes, that is very exciting, but this is even more exciting, she then led the team to a state championship. Yep. She does it all, including make beautiful kids. Mrs. Stack is highly deserving of this honor, and we are lucky to have her at Nettingham. Mrs. Ellen Makeley is an instructional aide here at Nettingham. She is a 26-year veteran, and as many of the teachers she has worked with describe her like having another teacher present in the room. Mrs. Makeley thrives working in content-specific older grade classrooms that may be seen as daunting to others. Her deep love and background in science enables her to effortlessly support students who may struggle. Mrs. Makeley is known for bringing items from her own experience to supplement students' understanding of the material. Her experience also allows her to help students develop and refine organizational habits and study skills when they need them most. We thank Mrs. Makeley for her strong dedication to student success.
Don't forget.
And now it is my pleasure and honor to welcome my colleague and friend, Dr. Kevin Holloway.
Congratulations to all the recipients, and congratulations to the board for our National School Boards Month. So thank you for all you do for our schools. It's my pleasure to welcome Ms. Rashida Adams and Mr. Alex Pasucci. So Michelangelo, he was born to, gotta have a story. Michelangelo was born to paint great works and sculpt great pieces of art. Michael Jordan, he was born to dominate the basketball court. Dr. Martin Luther King, he was born to lead a great movement. Rashida and Alex were born to be educators. Rashida, you are all about the kids. Your decision-making is always focused on what is in the best interest of the child. As a learning consultant, you consistently provide teachers with guidance on how to be successful with a particular student in a given content area. Your insights are rich and purposeful and aimed at attaining higher outputs from students. Equally impressive is your work with parents. Your support and understanding of their needs, along with your keen ability to get to what is needed, is impressive and noteworthy. You are deserving of this honor, and we are happy to have you on Team Terrell. Alex, you are a compassionate and a caring individual. Your willingness to do what it takes to help kids be successful is exceptional. It's almost as if you don't know the word no. You nurture and mentor students through a lens of empathy and kindness. You are a team player. You are committed to doing what is in the best interest of our school. Your professionalism is clearly evident in all you do. You are deserving of this honor, and we're happy to have you on Team Terrell. Both Alex and Rashida are not only advocates for children, but they are a voice for all kids. So congratulations. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. David Heisey, principal of Scotch Plains Fanwood High School.
All right, good evening all. I would ask Mr. Matthew Kripp to come down front and center. So Matt Kripp is a member of our science department, and Mr. Kripp facilitates academic, accelerated, and advanced placement chemistry. Advanced placement being a college level course taught at the high school level. Matt also serves as the advisor of the New Jersey Science League, a competitive club for students involved in science and chemistry, and he also advises the Philosophy Club. Matt Kripp is a student-centered educator, devoting a great deal of his time beyond the classroom working with the students. In his classroom, Mr. Kripp challenges his students beyond their own expectations. He brings chemistry to life by utilizing a multidisciplinary approach, infusing such topics into chemistry as social justice, philosophy, and integrating technology to enhance student learning. As one of the students making this nomination states, Mr. Kripp cares deeply for his students and makes learning about chemistry enjoyable. It's my pleasure to recognize Matt Kripp, Governor's Educator of the Year.
At this time, I'd like to ask all of the awardees to come front for a photo.
Family co-workers. Yeah. I am too.
She's probably a little bit older than my daughter's. About that tall.
Mr. Ritter is down here now. He's right. It's so hard to see, like, it's like Richter, like a local people. Oh, they're there. They're in the background.
I'd like to read the general resolution while everybody is present. Whereas this year's recipients of the 2021-2022 Governor Educator of the Year Award for Scotch Plains Fanwood Public Schools are teachers and educational service professionals, and whereas this year's recipients are highly skilled and dedicated in their areas of expertise and go above and beyond in their service to their students, and whereas this year's recipients are highly deserving of this honor, this year's recipients provide encouragement, support, guidance to students and staff alike throughout the district. And this year's recipients have been nominated by a panel of their peers and community members for demonstrating leadership and innovation both within and outside the school setting. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education recognizes and commends this year's recipients for being honored as the Scotch Plains Fanwood School District's recipients of the 2021-2022 Governor's Educator of the Year Award and extends their best wishes for continued success. Congratulations, everyone.
Of course, if given the choice to continue the celebration or listen to the state testing results, I can't tell you what I would choose, but here we are. So good evening, everyone. As promised, I'm back for the sequel to the state testing report I provided to the board back in October, with thanks to the curriculum committee who are hearing and seeing this for the second time, and potentially a little bit adjusted based upon some of their feedback. So as I mentioned back then, students in grades 4 through 12 completed a new battery of tests known as the Start Strong assessments between October 12th and October 22nd. We received these results just prior to the winter break, and individual student reports were sent home to families last week. Tonight I'm going to provide a snapshot of this data, as well as some of the strategies we've had in place before and since this assessment to keep us continuing to have a strong year. I will restate the disclaimer I made in October, and that is that it's important to note that test scores can only give us an indication of how a certain group of students performed on a test at a given test at a certain time. Test scores don't tell us the whole story. And as it relates to Start Strong, this is clearly the message that the New Jersey Department of Education wants us to share as well. Test scores don't ever tell us about the richness of our curriculum and the richness of all the ways in which our students, through the rigorous efforts of our teachers and administrators, are continuing to grow as learners and to recover from the disruption to the lives that COVID-19 caused. That said, I'll start off by giving a little bit of the backstory of Start Strong, where it came from, what it was. Notice that I used the past tense, what it was. We're looking forward to not having to start strong again. And how this should inform the lens through which we view the data. You may recall that New Jersey and other states applied to the Federal Department of Education for a waiver to the statewide assessment requirements for the 2021 school year. With that waiver, the New Jersey Department of Education promised to assess students at the beginning of this school year on standards from the prior year. Start Strong was constructed from released items from the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment. In particular, items that could be quickly machine scored, thus leaving many standards, including the anchor standards including several anchor standards within each subject, those measured in other ways, in ways other than multiple choice or fill in the blank type questions out of the assessment. Fourth grade math is a prime example. Of the 31 standards in third grade that the fourth grade Start Strong assessment tested, the Start Strong measured students' knowledge and skills in just 11 of them, with only 21 questions on the assessment. ELA is another good example of the limited scope of the assessment, as at each grade level, the assessment of potential support a student might have needed at the start of the year was determined by just 10 multiple choice questions. So not a really deep or great breadth of an assessment that was given. So clearly, Start Strong was not meant to replace other assessments that we use in the district and that are used in classrooms throughout our schools. So the assessments were based on a subset of prior year standards. So for example, fifth grade ELA, Start Strong was based upon a subset of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards for fourth grade. And only those in reading. So the fact that they call this an ELA assessment isn't quite accurate because it was a reading assessment. Outside of fulfilling the federal obligation, the DOE's goal in administering this assessment was to help educators identify the level of support students may have needed as the year began. Within each subject tested, one of 3 levels of support that a student may have needed was indicated, from less support to some support to strong support. In terms of interpretation, there are a few important points to be made. First, the design and scaled down number and types of items from a subset of standards tells us, and in fact the DOE told us, that we must use these results very differently than how some might use the NJSLA results. Second, another disclaimer, the assessment is not predictive of future performance on the NJSLA, which will be taken this year. Nor is it designed to estimate what score a student would have received if they had taken the NJSLA last spring. And third, what you might feel is missing from my report tonight is any comparative data. Start Strong is not being used to make comparisons among schools, school districts, or how we compare to the state overall. Finally, as we examine the results and as we look at these tonight, the DOE encouraged us to think about potential COVID impacts from the time period of the testing window itself in our specific region, in our towns, and in our schools. As you can see, we were part of the state in the orange during the window. It's worth noting that between the start of the school year and that point, over 1,000 of our students had been the subject of contact tracing efforts that you heard talked about tonight, and over 300 students had been or were in some form of quarantining or isolating in the weeks prior to or during the assessment. So the final point I'll make before I get into the actual sharing of the data is that the ultimate goal of Start Strong was to provide data points to use in curriculum-related planning, such as revisiting concepts, as our curriculum already does, and adjusting pacing as well as the scope and sequence as needed. A copy of this report will be, which includes data tables as well as the bar graphs, will be on our district website soon after tonight. As a point of introduction to viewing the data, you will see the 3 levels of potential support are color-coded in the bar graphs. For the purposes of interpretation, the legend for these bar graphs uses a traditional stoplight approach, not a spotlight approach. I feel like I'm in the spotlight, but it's a stoplight approach. With green indicating less support may be needed, red indicating that strong support may be needed, and yellow indicating that some support may be needed. So this is probably difficult to see from where you're sitting, and that's why it's going to be on the website. But the first set of bar graphs shows Ela support levels that may have been needed based on prior year standards from grades 4 on the left to grade 10, and ending with a percentage across all grades. As you can see, and as we suspected, our students need less support in reading than they do in math, which is what we anticipated and is why we prioritized using the MAP assessment at the end of last year so we could get a jump start on the year. So in fact, we started stronger earlier than Start Strong actually allowed us to. So many parents have asked about the scores in 8th grade, so I've sort of highlighted them here. Most of our 8th grade students, the majority of our 8th grade students, take Algebra 1. The Algebra 1 assessment that was given as part of Start Strong was based upon relevant algebra standards from 8th grade math, which our students hadn't taken. So they were being tested on content that they had yet to receive, which is really baked into our Algebra 1 course at 8th grade level. So not really giving us a great sense of where our 8th graders started. Science was a subject area that provided one of the greatest challenges in replicating learning experiences during the pandemic. Our current 9th graders, who lost much in the way of lab-based learning over the last 2 years, will be a focus of our ongoing assessment and learning acceleration efforts. So we can also look at Start Strong through various demographic lenses. Like here, we can see ELA outcomes by race for all grades that took the ELA assessment. Again, more green than both red and yellow combined in each grade level. Here's mathematics. The suggestion for level of support in math and science is a little bit much more of a mixed bag as it relates to race. Reading from left to right, each set of 3 bars represents students in grades 6, 9, and 12. I'm talking about this one here, who identify as Asian, Black, Hispanic, multiracial, and white. What we miss in Start Strong is any reference to mean or median, and it's important to keep in mind that membership in each group, that the number of students in each group, and the limited information about other calculations, such as the range of scores and the median, which can help us better interpret these, are not part of this view. So the next slides look at gender. This slide shows ELA, which again only includes reading standards and levels of support determined by just 10 multiple choice questions. This is mathematics. And here again, science, looking at all male and female identified students in grades 6, 9, and 12. Finally, our demographic look includes looking at the level of support possibly needed by students deemed economically disadvantaged, students with 504 plans, students with IEPs, and our English language learners, groups of students for whom we have programmatic supports already in place. So first are these are the ELA, or the reading results. Here are the math results. And finally, science. So what are we doing to continue to have an even stronger year as we move along? Well, first of all, our teachers are working harder and smarter than they ever have before. And so we owe them a debt of gratitude for just how hard they're working this year, and have been working since March of 2020, almost going on 2 years. We're prioritizing safe in-person teaching and learning, and we are maximizing the use of instructional time. We're continuing to focus on differentiation. We are using data to identify students in need of interventions or supports, or students who are in need of advanced learning opportunities through enrichment programs. So we're not taking sort of a glasses half full approach to things, because there are students who we know have fared really, really well through the pandemic and are ready for enrichment. We're making ongoing analysis of quarterly report card data in grades 6 through 12 and trimester standards-based report card data in grades K through 5. And we're using an ongoing analysis and application of MAP growth data. So hopefully I'll be back to talk with you after the winter administration of MAP, which starts next week. And we're providing professional development and support for teachers in utilizing our instructional resources, which already spiral, as I mentioned. So they distribute the learning across the grades and return to topics over time, which is why we selected things like staying with everyday math, because of that feature. And we've remained flexible to respond to student needs with programmatic initiatives such as the Pathways program, which we held back in the summer of 2021. And that was because we did assessment in the springtime to know who we really needed to provide some extra support for over the summer. And we'll continue to do that kind of work as we look at our students' growth over time. So finally, the challenges of 2021 have called, and 2021 and 22 actually now, have called on all of us, families, teachers and staff, our administrators, our superintendent, our Board of Education, to rally support for providing the best possible education for our students. We will continue to need strong support, so perhaps that's what this is all about, is that as a community we need strong support on behalf of our students. So I want to thank you for the support that you continue to give. Any questions? Or do we want to go back up there? Back up there for questions? Go.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Dr. McGarry. I appreciate that, all the effort that you put into that, and I look forward to additional results after your next round of testing. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. McGarry?
I had a quick question.
Mrs. Butcher?
On that second to last slide, it talked about spiral learning. What does that mean?
So that is in terms of, and the standards are developed that way as well. So, you know, we return to different topics throughout the grade level. So we're constantly going back to at a higher level. So students are hitting things not just once and done.
Right.
It's a constant sort of construction of knowledge and skills.
Through the grade, so not,
Yeah.
oh, that's interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McGarry. Thank you for your question, Mrs. Mitchell. Any other questions?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to make a comment and say that we're fortunate that we were doing the other assessments. We talked about in the committee the fact that these results came way too late for us to be able to really start off strong. So we're fortunate that we were able to get, that we were doing our own assessments.
Thank you, Mrs. Bauer. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we do have a little bit of housekeeping to take care of. We had the resolution read, and we presented the resolutions to the teachers and the assistant teachers. We have to vote on it.
Oh, second? Can we second it?
Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Any question or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Now the resolution is official. Thank you. Okay, Dr. McGarry, if that concludes your report, thank you. We'll move on to the public comment portion. In accordance with the Scotch Plains Family Public School Bylaw 0164-0165, the meeting shall be open for 15 minutes for public comments, maximum 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, speakers may address other matters. Speakers, please come up to the podium, speak slowly and clearly, and state your full name and the town in which you reside. Please note that board members cannot respond regarding concerns of individual students or staff members, and such matters should be addressed by the superintendent's office. So if you'd like to make a public comment, please come down to the podium at this time. Seeing no one, I'm going to close this portion of the meeting and move on to committee reports. Does anybody have a committee report? Mrs. Soriani.
The curriculum committee met The curriculum committee met this past Tuesday. We only had 2 agenda items. One was a preview of the report that everyone was just given on the Start Strong, so I'm not going to, we talked about it, had an opportunity to ask questions and reflect on the results. So that was one agenda item. The other was our world language supervisor and ELL supervisor presented on the district's 3-year plan for English language learners. The Department of Education requires a plan that a tool be completed every 3 years for each district on how our district is working with English language learners. So the last plan that was required was 2017 to 20, and then the process was put on hold due to COVID. So now the district was just asked to submit its most recent plan, which covers the years of 2021 to 24. The board received a copy of, you should have received a copy of this plan earlier this week. And the plan just comprises the completion of like a template with various questions about how we deliver services to our English language learners. And it ensures that our district is reflecting on data and trends that we see during testing. One thing that Lisa Howard presented was a strength of our ELL program, that it's been expanded in recent years compared to the last plan, that it's now in more buildings with expanded staff. So that's something that's exciting. We're meeting the needs of those students in expanded ways. And one thing that she identified as wanting to continue to focus on is collaboration between ESL teachers and general ed teachers. That's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Soriani. Does anybody have any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mrs. Soriani. Any other committee reports? Mr. Murray.
Sure. Student activities, athletics met. We spoke about middle school sports. So Mr. McKenna came to provide an overview of the history of middle school sports and the importance of building feeder programs. We do have middle school sports through the community programs with PAL as well as other club teams. So there's a bunch of things that do need to be considered, such as cost for coaches, officials, transportation equipment, uniforms, etc. And it's important to note that middle school sports were eliminated in the district due to budgetary reasons years ago. So more dialogue is needed, but the conversation is happening. So hopefully more to come in future meetings. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any questions?
I have a question.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Please. It actually is for the curriculum committee. I just thought of it while Evan was talking. Thank you for the inspiration, Evan.
Can you just move your mic closer?
Was there any change that we know of in English scores or participation in some way after the influx of the diverse books in our libraries? Do we have any data on that? I know it hasn't been a long time, but I was just wondering if that's increased interest or comprehension or anything like that.
You're asking if test scores have increased since?
Or any metric, more books being taken out in the library, more conversations, more, it could even be qualitative. I was just wondering if we have any information on that.
Maybe that's something that we can ask our media specialists.
Admittedly, it's very recent, but I was just wondering.
It's an interesting question of the different types of data sources. I think anecdotally, we know that the students certainly appreciate having choice in their books, and it's consistent with our theme of windows and mirrors. I think the move from all the mandated text to more student choice has been very positive. we get that feedback from both the teachers and the students. But we haven't done an official data collection, and we haven't had a lot of standardized test data as with respect to the New Jersey learning standards.
Sure.
But it's something the curriculum
It would be
committee could
interesting
certainly
to get
follow
the
up.
perspective.
Something to
Maybe
think about,
a
yeah.
future curriculum committee can have the media specialists, or, talking about some of their reflections. Right. Thanks.
It's a good thought, Mrs. Mitchell, and thank you for bringing that to our attention, and we'll look into that. Were there any other questions?
I have 2 reports.
Okay, go right ahead, Mrs. Browning.
Community Relations met last week. We reviewed a newsletter format and discussed sections that we would like to put in it, as well as timing and the mode of distribution of it. Some of the sections that are already included is a superintendent's message, stories such as the robotics competition and alma mater revival, strategic planning update, other stories such as coffee with superintendent, a communication plan, new hires, new teacher, orientation, professional development. All the stories will be paired with a picture. And we also would have a section of a finance section with an important date. Some section suggestions were about the budget, a did you know section, a highlighting staff, a Board of Ed section info, a highlight a board member, and an extracurricular section. The distribution, it will be through email, and then we also discussed putting it on our Facebook page and Twitter with a link. And we will have it on the website, and we discussed having a link through the town's newsletters, if we can do that, and through the district notification system, SWIFT. And we're going to roll this out in February. So be on the lookout, everybody out there. So be on the lookout for it in February. And we also discussed reviewing the policy around social media use, since we're going to start using the social media much more actively. So that was community relations.
Thank you, Mrs. Brody. You said you had 2 reports?
Yeah, I didn't know if there was any questions.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Brody?
Are we good?
Seeing none?
All right, we had finance last night. And we discussed preliminary budget figures using the 2018-2019 as a base for a normalized year. We also discussed the budget presentation content, and Christopher will go over it with the Finance Committee prior to the public presentation. We had an audit report from Catherine Mitchell from, I can never pronounce it, Nova Scotia. And all the board members, it was distributed to you tonight, and she'll be back in February to do a public presentation on that. And basically, it's all good results, no audit issues, a great working relationships with our new BA, Christopher Jones, and Assistant BA, James Canellis, and that was really the content of the meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Brody. Any questions for Mrs. Brody? Thank you. Are there any other reports to be heard? Mr. Murray?
Is someone going to do Tanya's report, or do you want me to do it for her? For wellness and equity? I have it up. You want me to?
Great.
So Ms. Williams sent out her committee report for wellness and equity. So her report consists of Liz McKenna providing the process that English and Language Arts Department uses to select the text for 9th through 12th grade curriculum. Teachers are able to address concerns regarding sensitive content, reemphasize how we are diversifying titles, and the flexibility in the classroom for students to have choice. Windows and mirrors show really hard truths, and the classroom is a safe and structured place to have the relevant conversations. The next meeting is February 17th at 5:30.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Are there any questions? Seeing none? Thank you. Don't forget, next month we will roll out our strategic plan, so that's upcoming. And if there are no other committee reports, we'll move on to letters from the board. Okay, there were a total of 14 letters and emails that were received from the public, and the appropriate administrator has responded. Board motions, curriculum report, Dr. Mast.
1C, move that the Board of Education approves the superintendent's decisions on the HIB cases from the executive session of December 16th. 2C, move the Board of Education approves the English language learner 3-year plan from 2021 to 2024. And 3C, move that the Board of Education approves the memorandum of agreement with law enforcement officials regarding security operations. 2C requires a roll call.
Thank you, Dr. Mast. Mr. Jones, since 2 is a roll call vote, will you just call the roll for all 3 items? Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkler, and is that Mrs. Brody as the second? Thank you both.
Okay. Ms. Winkler?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Brody?
Yes.
Ms. Bauer?
I'm yes for 2C and 3C, but I was absent on December 16th, so I'd like to abstain.
Okay. Abstain. 1C. Okay. Mrs. Borrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Siriani?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Dr. Kolakowski?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Thank you, Dr. Mast. And Dr. Mast, we still have personnel.
Move the Board of Education approve the superintendent's recommendations for personnel as we discussed in exec.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Any question or discussion? Okay, Mr. Jones, will you please call the roll again?
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Ms. Winkler?
Yes.
Ms. Bauer?
Yes.
Mrs. Boroff?
Yes.
Ms. Brody?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Siriani?
Yes.
Dr. Kolakowski?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Thank you, Dr. Mast. Okay, that brings us to the business report. Mr. Jones.
Okay. Number 1 is staff training. Number 2 is just approving the use of funds for non-public schools. They get allocated from the state. Number 3 is related services, special education. Number 4 is our audit, as we discussed. She'll be here next week to present on the audit. Number 5 is it's part of the audit process. 2 years ago, this was a new standard that was implemented by the state, so we have to go to a separate firm to compile the results. It's basically similar to number 4. Number 6 is supplemental insurance. So this is just for our non-affiliated staff members to be able to get short and long-term disability. The teachers have a different, they use a Prudential, and that's through the Teachers Association. So this is just sort of filling a gap in our coverage. Number 7 is standard approval of drug testing or for transportation. Number 8 is submission of grants to do amendments for the carryover from the prior year. Number 9 is disposal of equipment, and then we'll put for sale on Gov Deals. Number 10 is our fire drills. Number 11 is our board secretary's report. Number 12 is our account reconciliations. Number 13 is our bills. And number 14 is approving a vendor for theater.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Can I have a motion to accept the 14 items that he has moved?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Siriani. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Boroff. Is there any question or discussion?
I have a question.
Ms. Brody.
Would we be voting on the audit if she hasn't presented it yet?
Yeah, you received the.
Just because we got the book?
You have the
Okay.
report. She's just coming to, summarize basically.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones. Thank you, Mrs. Brody. Any other question or discussion? Okay, it's been motioned and second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Okay, are there any board policies?
None at this time.
Thank you. Any new board business? None at this time. Other board business? Any liaison reports? Mrs. Soriani.
The Joint Committee for Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation meets monthly, so that's why I always have a liaison report for it. So we met earlier in January. We basically talked about trying to solicit new members to our group, community members, so the stakeholders that are currently on the group, including both mayors, council people from both towns, myself as the board liaison. We have a community member now and members of the Ministerium and Social Justice Matters. We're each going to try to identify additional community members that could be part of TRHT. Then we talked about what our monthly meetings will look like going forward, and we've talked about engaging the community in the past. So what we are going to do is some meetings are going to be business-oriented for just the committee, and then other meetings we are going to engage the public in, so look out for that. We talked about potentially having racial healing circles. We talked about having speakers, potentially on such topics such as art, using art for racial healing, and topic-driven speakers like that. So there will be more on that in future reports, but most likely we will be able to engage the public in our work this spring. We also talked about upcoming racial healing circles, which they were upcoming, but now they've occurred at the Martin Luther King Day, Day of Service, and the Day of Racial Healing. And we also talked about looking into doing a community assessment to really, and looking into a grant to research the histories of our towns, Fanwood and Scotch Plains, and how we could use that data as part of the TRHT work moving forward. And that's it. I'll have another report in February.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Soriani. Any questions? Seeing none. Any other liaison reports?
I just have a report based on a CPAGS meeting that took place this week.
And which report is this?
The Special Education Parents
CPAG?
Advisory Group.
Okay.
Which does fall under the Wellness and Equity Committee, but since Tanya wasn't here, I'll just fill in. And real brief, just to let everyone know that there are now building representation established for each school for a CPAG parents. So I believe it's one representative and another assistant representative who will be present at PTA meetings, which will be certainly lead for an opportunity for engagement and communication. Each building is looking for more people always to engage with, as well as any parents for out-of-district placement as well. Right now, as they're just really, the goal for this moment in time was to establish the representation for each of the buildings, as well as to prioritize the focus of the main priorities that they have to accomplish. But the other big task that they're doing is awareness, and so it's important, and I think appreciated on our end for everyone to know that they have these building reps and to look for information in your PTA newsletters just about your upcoming PTAs and involvement as well, and so really just stay tuned with that. But anyway, that the admin and the district are helping to spread the word and encourage people to participate in surveys and raise awareness as well so that we can get the group going.
Thank you, Mrs. Bora. Any other questions? Seeing none, we move on to 2 OBB. Any requests to attend workshops or workshop reports? Seeing none, 3 OBB. We have a resolution, to move that the board adopts the following Black History Month resolution, and 4 OBB. Oh, that's it? No, it's a 4. The move that the Board of Education adopts the New Jersey School Board month of January for the school board's month. Can I please have a motion for that?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Brody.
Second.
A second, Mrs. Mitchell, thank you. I can't hardly hear you way over there, you're so far. Okay, any question or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion on the resolutions passes. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the 5 OBB, which is the board committee assignments. Now, the board committee assignments, we had filled out papers and you requested additional committees or changes previously. Most people wanted to keep their same liaison position, and the grievance team stayed the same. However, one thing that was brought to my attention was the SPFBOE Board Relations Committee. There are 3 members, one of which has a conflict, so that person has to come off. So Mrs. Bauer and Mrs. Williams are the only 2 remaining members. Does anybody would like to?
Mrs. Winkler had accepted.
Mrs. Winkler? Thank you. So with the addition of Mrs. Winkler for the SPFBOE Board Relations Committee, thank you very much, Mrs. Winkler. Everything else looks the same and okay for everybody else where your name is listed. And that goes on to the second page for grievance committees, which were the same for the past couple of years. Okay. That being said, can I have a motion to accept the committee assignments for 2022-2023?
So moved.
Mrs. Soriani gets the motion, Mr. Murray gets the second. Any question or discussion aside from the one name I mentioned? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you. And that brings us to the approval of minutes. The move that the Board of Education approves the minutes below, and it's from December 16th, 2021, the regular public meeting minutes of the executive session, and the December 16th regular public meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Boroff. Any question or discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Mrs. Bauer is abstaining. Motion carries. So now, in accordance with the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education, Public School Bylaw 0164, 0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comments. Maximum 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, speakers may address other matters. Speakers, please speak slowly and clearly. State your full name and the town in which you reside. Please note that board members cannot respond regarding concerns of individual students or staff members, and such matters should be addressed with the superintendent's office. Please come down to the podium at this time if you'd like to make a public comment. Seeing none, we'll close this portion of the meeting, and we will discuss the upcoming scheduled meetings, which is February 24th, which will be our regular public meeting, and it will be held at the Terrell Middle School Auditorium at 7:30. And now I'd like to entertain some remarks for the good of the order. Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Dr. Kolakowski. On Martin Luther King Day, I attended a Truth and Racial Healing Circle. It was my first one. It was led by Sharon Stroy from Rutgers, Newark, and former Mayor of Scotch Plains, Al Smith. I cannot recommend these circles enough. It was very interesting. You introduced yourself. What was your name? What's your birth order? And where were your grandparents born? So any meeting starting like that, you know it's going to be good. The agenda was really about how to trust each other and how to connect. And the prompts were about healing and speaking your truth. So I just want to encourage any parents or board members here to give it a try, because when parents and communities connect and understand each other, so do our students. They connect and understand each other, and that's the whole purpose we're here. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. Is there any other comments for the good of the order? Okay, seeing none, then can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Murray, and second was Mrs. Winkler. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Good night, everyone. Thank you.